Good evening. I want to thank the League of Women's Voters, Scott and Senator Phelan, for taking place in this debate tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming, all our guests here tonight. My name is Alan Myers. I reside in Tiverton, where I live with my wife for 34 years. Our daughter and grandson also call Tiverton their home. I'm a business owner and professional in system analysis and network engineering for the past 25 years. I sit here tonight as a candidate for the Rhode Island State Senate because I believe that Rhode Island is heading in a wrong direction. Our schools are failing, our healthcare systems are collapsing, and our economic climate is on life support due to the debacle on the Washington Bridge closure and the ongoing construction. Along with the impending relocation of companies such as CVS, Hasbro, and Citizens Bank, among others. Affordable housing in this district is virtually non-existent. Tax overrides this year, resulting in a 42.5% tax payment increase in Warren, have added to the tax burden we've already experienced in the district. Energy costs have skyrocketed. Undocumented immigrants, numbering over 30,000 in last count, receiving housing, monetary benefits, and driver's licenses, while hundreds of our veterans are homeless on the street, receiving little to no vital services. This election year, Rhode Island stands at a precipice, and our elected officials who have held power as a one-party supermajority for almost 80 years, like my opponent who's held public office for 46 of those years, will ask us, the electorate, who have been suffering under that one-party leadership, for the right to keep their jobs. Rhode Island needs change. Hopefully, tonight I'll be able to show you that I'm the person who will effectuate that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Walter Phelan, your opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Walter S. Phelan Jr. My occupation is I'm a senior computer software engineer for C-Corp in Middletown, Rhode Island. My wife and I own a small business in Barrington called Feminine Fancies, which my wife works there possibly every day. So I know the hardships that small businesses go through. We have 2 children, Jake and Zeke, and we were honored 7.5 months ago to have our first grandchild, Remy. My election is about experience. I think it's so important that we have someone that has demonstrated leadership and a proven track record. I sat here 20 years ago for 20 years as your town council president. And during that time, it was without a town manager. I was able to provide fiscal budgets, proven audit reports, and also to put funds aside for various entities within the town, whether it be the fire department or the sewer commission, and also to end up having 100% of pension funds. During my time in the General Assembly, I've worked diligently on a $3.9 billion budget that's proved to be catering to all our individuals without the whole state. So with that, I'm accessible and I look forward to this debate.
All right, thank you. So each candidate went over by 30 seconds, so we each used 1 wild card, 7 more. We're going to start with questions. Mr. Myers, we're going to start with you, and you each have a minute to answer the same question. You can use wild cards after you've each had your minute, if you choose to, and then we'll switch the order for the next question. So, Mr. Myers, if elected to serve in the General Assembly, what's one bill you will work the hardest to pass in the next session?
What I would work on first would be the Office of Inspector General. I know this came up last session, and it was unanimously by the other party voted down, which I don't understand. We have a history going all the way back to 38 studios. Now with our Washington Bridge situation, we find that we're having companies who are being sued by our state that did the work that didn't get done since 2012. Some of these people received contracts to do the work for the future bridge. Now they're working right now, and they were just stopped because they allowed the people who were doing the work, who are being sued by the company, to destroy vital evidence. They finally stopped that, and this kind of silliness can't go on. If we had an inspector general, we would probably do much better. And inspector generals is a common thing. 34 states have inspector generals. Massachusetts, first in 1984, was one of the first ones in our region to have an inspector general. They always pay for themselves. They always use their their money very wisely, and I think it was $85,000 the first year they spent on the Office of Inspector General, and they ended up recovering $1.2 million. It's usually a $21 to $1 of expense return on money.
Thank you. Mr. Felix, any question?
If Mr. Myers looked up my record, he would see that I was a co-sponsor of the Inspector General bill. The biggest bill, obviously, is the budget. As Vice Chair of the Finance Committee, it's imperative that I work with my colleagues of 75 reps and 38 senators to put forth a document that represents the views of everyone within the state of Rhode Island. That budget is comprised of what we call $5.6 billion of general revenue expenditures, $5 billion of federal aid, and 3.2 of restricted funds and other funds. Those other funds are pass-through funds. For instance, like URI and RIC and those colleges pass through about $1.2 billion of that $3.2 billion. Other aspects of money we take in from the lottery. The major aspect is increasing our general revenue expenditures. Those are the funds that we receive from the income tax of $1.9 billion, the sales tax of $1.7 billion, and $450 million that we receive from the lottery. That comprises probably about 72% of the general revenue expenditures.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to a new question. Mr. Felix, we'll start with you. This question came from the public. It starts with a opinionated statement, but just so you know, it's not my words. There is not one law on gun control that can prevent gun violence. Do you believe that any gun control legislation can have an impact on gun violence? What would it be and why?
Well, most definitely, over the years, we as a General Assembly have put forth and supported common sense gun laws, whether it be the high-capacity ban, whether it be the safe storage of firearms, whether it be the red flag law, whether it be the ghost gun. These are a number of bills that we have put forward. If you wanted to add one more, it'd probably be the sale of assault weapons. Our neighboring states of Connecticut and Massachusetts have that particular law in place, and I don't see any concern with it. The only thing would be is to try to figure out what is that definition of assault rifles.
Mr. Myers.
In 2022, 4 laws were passed having to do with gun violence. And the homicide rate in Rhode Island, I think, was 19 people died because of gun violence. In 2023, after those laws were in fact, it went up to 28. Gun violence is usually, it's an illegal act. It's done by people who don't usually lawfully own guns. And this year, we hear Governor Heath talk about passing a assault weapon ban this year, and he wants to do it through the budget, so it's sure to go through. But we have no definition of what assault weapons are. I dare any senator or rep that I've spoken to a legislative agenda of the meetings to discuss that. They have no idea either. So to violate our civil rights, a very strong civil right that goes all the way back to the beginning, over something that you can't even define, is problematic.
Thank you. New question, Mr. Myers. The housing crisis is acute in the state of Rhode Island. There is a bond issue on the ballot for funding. Are there specific measures that you would recommend to alleviate the affordable housing problem in Rhode Island?
Yeah, the affordable housing issue is exacerbated by not just the amount of houses we have, but the taxes make things unaffordable. So anyone here who's ever got a mortgage, they figure in what your bills are, and they figure what you can afford for a mortgage. And that includes your utilities, that includes all your bills. Everything has gone up crazy. In the last 2 years, we have 55% energy costs go up. The taxes have gone up. Just this time, they're actually going to have an override in Warren to get the taxes paid this year. We went to 5.7%. So it's a 42.5% increase in taxes. If it keeps going like this, how is anybody going to afford a house, regardless of the supply of houses that are there? No one will be able to get a mortgage, especially with the mortgage rate so high. So the real thing would be just to start with the cause of the unaffordable housing, which is really the taxes and the bills and We have the regulations also where they're just passing crazy zoning laws in Tiverton and in Warren. So we have to get over that hump first. But it's really, most of it is man-created. And plus we have people from out of the state buying all the properties up. A lot of people are, they're commuting to work from Connecticut, maybe even some of them all the way down in New York, and they're using it as remote locations for work in Boston. So until we can get a handle on that, I don't know what we're going to do with it. And plus, Warren is just so small. We talk about Warren, there's just no place to put places anymore.
Mr. Phelan?
Can you define the question again, please?
Yeah, the housing crisis is acute in Rhode Island. There's a bond issue on the ballot for funding. Are there specific measures that you would recommend to alleviate the affordable housing problem in Rhode Island?
Well, first of all, I'd like to commend the House for putting forth their housing package. At least someone has the gumption to put forth a measure that can be weighed one way or the other. Part of the issue is that I didn't agree with it because of the fact that I feel that we're imbalanced here. When we talk about low and moderate income housing, we're only talking about a small percentage of that federally funded aspects. So we're talking about 3.4% for the town of Warren. If the town of Warren did, or the legislature did what I wanted to do, was to pass a bill adding in on the Section 8 housing, then we'd be up to 9%. And in the town of Warren, if we encompass those aspects in terms of those rentals that assist people, small cottages and those in assisted living, they would find that would be well above that 10% threshold. I do support we put it in the budget of the $1.1 billion that we received in COVID funds, the SFRF funds, $320 million we put towards that. And then obviously I'm supporting the bond issue of $120 million in question number 3. And we've taken the measure of having a cabinet position of Rhode Island housing. So we've looked at it and we're concentrating on that issue for the town and for the state.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Phelan, begins with you. Looking at the state budget, which I know you're familiar with, do you agree with how Rhode Island is spending nearly $14 billion annually? Does the state have the right priorities and focus, or would you shift how and where the state's resources are allocated?
No, I believe that it's allocated properly. For the past 26 years, I've been on the Finance Committee, so we work diligently on our behalf of the Senate in terms of putting together a budget as the House does, and then collectively we decide. The budget is based on the governor's recommendation, and the governor puts forth a budget based on the general revenue expenditures of the November revenue conference. So based on those estimates, he puts together a budget. The legislature finalizes it based on the May revenue estimate conferences. So those conferences can be different in terms of what the overall aspect is in terms of general revenue and things of that nature. Yes, I believe it's appropriately spent. 45% is on human and health care, human services. 25% of the total budget is on education, and the rest is on general government and environment and other aspects. So it's critically important that we increase the revenues. If we look at the revenues of general revenue expenditures back in 2019, it was probably like $3.9 billion, and now we've gone to $5.6 billion. So that means we've increased it. That means we've increased our income tax, our sales tax, and those other aspects that allow us to provide more money for the municipalities. For instance, we eliminated the motor vehicle tax. The motor vehicle tax was $235 million. So we give the communities that much money on a yearly basis. In other words, the town of Bristol gets $3 million, the town of Warren gets $2 million, and the town of Tiverton gets $1.7 million. We also implemented last year, for instance, the bigotry tax exemption, which would put in another up to $50,000 50,000 per business, which amounts to around $28 million. And then obviously our popular thing has been the 1% sales tax that the communities have. That brings into the state $40 million, of which Bristol gets 700,000, Warren gets about 500,000, and Bristol gets about 450. I could talk all day on the budget. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you have,
I don't want to be wild caught.
you used the bunch. Mr. Myers, same question, your comments on the state budget.
Right, knowing where the money is going is important, but we have a $13.7 billion budget, the highest in our state's history. This year, across the state, many school systems were not reimbursed the same amount of money. In fact, Tiverton was $1.2 million in the red this year. There was a plan of closing a school in Warren that I think they were level funded this year, or pretty much close to that, between the Bristol and Warren Regional District. But we have a problem with revenue. You can't keep taxing people to make up the budget shortfalls. We have the highest sales tax in the whole region, which means every penny that is made here, if we live close to, like Warren, like Tiverton, if we live next to a low tax area, all that money flows out of the area. That money, sales tax is a compounding interest. It's like a 401k. The second that money leaves the district, it never comes back to a higher sales tax district. That's money that is made in Rhode Island, doesn't stay in Rhode Island. It just flows right out of the island, right off of Rhode Island, right into Massachusetts and Connecticut right now. So we have a big problem with that. It's keeping the money we have is the most important thing. We really need to lower our sales tax, increase the amount of support we have for our businesses. Our businesses are leaving on a crazy basis. I mean, CVS, Hasbro, their bases. I mean, they are the staples of Rhode Island, some of these companies, and they're leaving. And so how are we ever going to retain jobs? How are we ever going to retain money when the money is flowing out of the state? That's where the revenue comes from. You can't just keep taxing people to death. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to a new question, Mr. Myers, we're going to start with you. This has been an entertaining question before. Do you approve of the job done by Governor Dan McKee and DOT Director Peter Alviti regarding the Washington Bridge situation?
Should I just say no? Or can I go on?
You have 58 more seconds to elaborate.
Okay, well, I'll use the 58 more seconds to say that we need an inspector general. I think if we had an inspector general to look at what's going on, people would have been going to jail already. We see that these reports went out as far back as 2012 that this bridge was unsafe. Every single day, 90,000 cars are passing through that bridge, and anything could have happened. We could have had a disaster. And they've been kicking the can down the street for years and years, and now we got to a point where we have the businesses are closing in East Providence, in Barrington, in Warren. We're having all these problems. I attended a business meeting in East Providence, and I think the only person who showed up was the representative from East Providence, Matt. And so we had a great night discussing things, but no one else showed up. And I guess the one-party system is the reason that we don't have too many people mouthing off too much about this, but our reps and senators really need to be much louder about this. It isn't just the inconvenience of you driving to work, it's the hours you've lost out of your life, it's the business that will close and never recover. Plus, they talked about $200 million in 2 or 3 years. It's going to be $700 million to $1 billion before it's over, and it's going to be 5 to 6 years. I'm saying that today.
Mr. Feeling, same question.
Obviously, the East Bay residents have burdened the brunt of the bridge closure. If you remember correctly, when the bridge was closed that particular evening, I gave a phone call to the governor and to the DOT director about certain aspects of certain things that should be taking place right away. And the governor even mentioned it at his news conference that next morning. So as far as the East Bay reps and senators not doing anything, as you all know, this is an executive decision. It's a decision from the governor. The legislature can only get involved in terms of providing information to our residents, and we've done that. We've had weekly meetings with the DOT director, at which time information is provided to them. We passed legislation that on a monthly basis, DOT would provide information for the public. We made sure the DOT put up a website. We made sure that we have 3 lanes going each way. We've appropriated $83 million towards this particular project. And you have to remember now that it's in the legal arena. And when it's in the legal arena, the state of Rhode Island can or receive shares from the particular vendor. In other words, it's not a winner take all. It's the responsibility of how much fault DOT is and how much fault the contractors are. So that percentage will garner what we receive in that lawsuit.
Thank you. Okay, new question, Mr. Phelan, starts with you. What role should charter schools or vouchers play in the educational system?
They actually play a very vital role. But when I look at charter schools, I look at them as more of an urban type of alternative, not something that should be within the suburban communities. We have public schools in the suburban communities that do their job, and if you had a charter school, then you're taking away monies from those particular suburban schools, and they wouldn't have the opportunity to do it. As the schools are going now, they're more going to CTE type classes, which allows individuals to garner or move from one community to another if they want to look at a certain discipline.
Mr. Myers?
Charter schools are a great idea. Private schools are a great idea. It gives parents an opportunity to have some sort of choice in their kids' education. We know that Rhode Island schools are in the bottom tier in the country. I mean, this is Rhode Island. We have Ivy League schools, and what we have now is Rhode Island scores are lower than places like Mississippi, Arkansas, and people, you traditionally think the Deep South, that you would think that the scores weren't being that high, but they are. And so we have people in the inner cities who are dealing with the chaos of school life in the inner cities, and some of the kids are threatened, they're bullied, they're all this. By not giving these same people the opportunities that some of us in the communities out here to have charter schools and private schools, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair. Everybody has a right to a good education, and they should have the ability, the same abilities everywhere else in the state. So I think that at charter schools, they should be expanded, and private schools should be expanded. We're seeing a huge uptick in homeschooling now. It started with COVID, and now it's just being continued. So if our schools don't get the public schools don't get their act together, I think we're going to see a big trend, and that our schools are going to lose a lot of funding.
Thank you. New question, Mr. Myers. What is your opinion of the government's role in protecting our environment?
We have legislative and committees that handle all walks of things in our zone. We have water, we have the DEM, we have all the different things that handle our waterfront. So this government always has a place in protecting our green spaces and in protecting our environment. I think the Act on Climate 2021 goes too far. It has created a situation where our rates are skyrocketing through electricity. Look, Rhode Island is the greenest state per capita in the country and has been for a long time. The crisis that they're creating in this state doesn't exist. We are absolutely the greenest. We use natural gas, which is very clean burning anyhow, but we are spending a ton of money on our offshore wind farms and solar panels. As we've seen last week, what the devastating effects of a hurricane could have. It takes one hurricane to wipe out our entire wind farms and our solar panels in one shot. What will we do? Usually when we have coal burning or gas fired or oil burning things, our power goes out for a couple of days. What are we going to do when we lose our entire infrastructure? How long will we have no electricity? That's what I'm worried about.
Mr. Phelan, same question.
I'm very proud of my environmental record. I've been able to receive awards, the Great Ebert Award, the Earth Day Award over the years, and I was proud to work with Representative Speakman in the PFAS legislation that addresses our drinking water. During the year, I've been to 2 dedications of solar panel developments, one in Bristol and one in Warren. And the East Bay is ripe for climate change, and I'm glad to see that this is going to be a joint issue that requires attention from the municipality, from the state, and from the federal government. Warren received a grant, I believe, the other day relative to URI to look at their low-lying areas. And so it takes each of us to do our part in terms of addressing this ongoing issue.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna move to a new topic. This is technically question 8. We said there were gonna be 6 to 8. I'm gonna throw a bonus question 9 in, and I'll give you each one more wild card, so we'll go up to 9 wild cards.
I wonder why you gave us 9 cards. I was
So,
trying to figure that out. I thought I could slip one more in.
So even though you guys are talking a lot, we're moving at a crisp pace, so we're gonna get a bonus question. So this question begins with you, Mr. Keelat. Should the General Assembly be doing more to address the critical shortage of primary care, mental health, and medical providers in the state? If so, what should be done? And as a tangent, what do you think about the idea of building a medical school at URI?
Obviously, first, the medical school at URI is something that's just being initiated. Senator Laurier from Barrington is heading that up for us on the Senate side, and the commission will garner all the information they can to provide an informed decision. Do we have a big concern? Yes, we do. We have a big concern from the bottom worker to the physicians. As far as the physicians are concerned, we're providing tax credit for student loans for primary care providers. We're funding training sites for primary care providers. We're providing funding and purchasing and eliminating medical debt for those individuals, and we've commissioned the medical school. My big concern right now is at the Veterans Home, because we can't find enough CNAs to house the veterans that we have on the waiting list. And that's a shame, because we should be able to afford that opportunity to have our veterans have a place to study.
Thank you. Mr. Myers, same question.
Well, it seems that the lack of practitioners we have for the mental health issue in Rhode Island is based on the reimbursement rates of other states. Rhode Island is, of course, at the very bottom of reimbursements. We are number 50 out of 50. Massachusetts and Connecticut hover around the 25th in the list there. So what happens is we have a number of practitioners here who choose to open their offices in Massachusetts right over the border to our district, which is half of the problem of Portland. So they can just open their practitioners right over the district. And the money is so much better than that. So even if we create more and more practitioners in a college, they're going to do the same thing. We have to address the fact that we have the lowest reimbursement rate. Maybe we can do something with, like we were talking about, with the tax credits or the credits for schools and this kind of things for our practitioners, student loan forgiveness or something for practitioners where we need people. But just putting a school to bring more people in isn't going to help, because they're going to go outside the district where they're making twice as much money. That's what it is.
Thank you. All right, last question for both of you. Mr. Myers, I'll start with you. Is there anything we have not talked about tonight that you would like to talk about?
Well, there's a million things. There's a million things. We really need to address the chaos in society today. We have, with the problem, the mental health issue dovetails right into that. We have people that can't afford groceries. People can't afford gas, they can't afford everything. Now we have things with the businesses closing around the bridge. We have kids in schools being bullied. The chaos in society is what increases the need for our mental health professionals. And so unless we start pinpointing the causes of the mental health illness issues we have in our state, unless we just start talking about those things, we're not going to get anywhere. So we really need to start fighting against those issues.
Mr. Keelat.
I think that what's missing is my proven track record over at least the last couple of years in terms of legislation. I've been able to pass 7 bills last year, pass 9 bills the year before. But more importantly, I've been able to pass what is called budget amendments. Those are things in the Finance Committee that you don't get credit for passing a bill, but you get credit for putting those particular things within the budget. Those being the earned income credit for our hardworking, low-income individuals from 16 to 17%. Adding the exemption on the pension system for our military people, that they don't have to pay a tax on it. That's a bill I've had in for about 15 years. We finally got it over the finish line. Whether it be the exemption of our pension exemption from 20K to 50K for those individuals that are single, that have under 101K or 126K, or helping our teachers out in terms of retirement from the high 5 years to 3 years.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna move to closing statements. Mr. Feelag, we'll start with you. We'll go in reverse order of how we started. So, Mr. Feelag, you have, so you have up to 2 minutes for your closing statement if you would like.
All right. President Theodore Roosevelt said it best. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or when the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena. It's easy to throw dots when you're on your other side. When you're one of 113 legislators, with a governor, with an executive thing, your opportunity is to do what you can do for the community. I'm accessible. I reply to over 600 emails and correspondence from individuals. I help individuals on a daily basis. That is my role. I've dedicated my adult life to the town of Warren and the East Bay community. I coached Little League for 25 years, ran an indoor soccer and coached the indoor soccer league for 25 years, was on the town council and had favorable budgets, and guess what my pay was? $1,000 a year. No town manager, but I had a great staff. I had a great town clerk, and more importantly, I had a great treasurer working behind the scenes to assist the community in having those favorable budgets and not having any issues. At the legislature, I've worked diligently on behalf of those constituents. I have the ability to listen and learn to people, from people. More importantly, is that I have connections with the Rhode Island DOT, DEM, DLT, Commerce, and DMV to help our constituents when they run into an issue. I don't just pass it on. I call up those individuals and ask for their assistance. And they usually respond to me. My opponent, on the other hand, is more of a gloom and doom type of individual that really doesn't have solutions, and he's going to be one of 113, and I don't think he's going to have that effect that he thinks he's going to have.
Thank you. Mr. Myers, you also have up to 2 minutes.
Great. Well, I'll start by thanking everybody before we get into it. For the League of Women Voters and you, Scott, for hosting this event tonight. We spent a lot of time tonight hearing about experience. My opponent stated you vote for him because of his experience, but what has your experience been with Walter Feelag as your senator? How was your experience at the supermarket checkout? How was your experience when you pay your utility bills? How was your experience at the gas pump today? How was your children experience in their failing schools? How was your experience in finding a doctor for your health care? How was your commute to the Washington Bridge been? How was your experience in finding affordable housing in Rhode Island been? Many issues were discussed tonight, and to be sure, they're important issues. But in 1992, to use another president's statement, James Carville coined a phrase for his boss, Bill Clinton's president campaign. I'm not usually in the habit of quoting Bill Clinton, but I will, but we all remember it. The phrase was, "It's the economy, stupid." Okay? And people are hurting in Rhode Island. We need leaders with real-world experience to fix the problems with their neighbors they face every day. If elected, I promise to represent you in the Senate. I will work with our town councils, our neighborhood groups, and our advocacy groups to identify the needs and concerns of District 10, not the schemes of big money in Providence. I will bring back town hall meetings where local issues can be discussed and your concerns can be brought to Smith Hill. With that, I ask for your support and vote in this election. Thank you.
All right, thank you both.